So when I say the word romanticism, what pops into your head? Probably some dramatic paintings of stormy seas, or maybe some really passionate poetry. And yeah, you're not wrong. But what if I told you that's just scratching the surface? What if Romanticism wasn't just an art style, but one of the most ambitious philosophical projects ever? A grand plan to completely change how we see ourselves, our society, and the world itself. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so let's start with what seems like a simple question. How do you actually define Romanticism? Well, it turns out this very question has been tripping up experts for literally centuries. In fact, it's so tricky that one scholar, Arthur Lovejoy, famously called it the scandal of literary history and criticism. A scandal? Why? Well, because the word romantic has been stretched to mean so many different, even contradictory things that it's almost meaningless on its own. But, and this is a big but, there was a central idea holding it all together. And that's what we're going to unpack right now. To really get what the Romantics were trying to do, we first have to understand the problem they saw all around them. They felt like they were living in a world that had been shattered into pieces, dissected by the very way of thinking that was supposed to be making everything better. See, the Enlightenment had put reason up on a pedestal, and that was great for sure, but the Romantics argued it came at a massive cost. It created all these deep divisions in our lives. Our ability to reason was suddenly seen as separate from our ability to feel. Humans were seen as somehow outside of and better than nature. And nature itself, it was no longer a living, breathing thing, but just a cold, dead machine you could take apart and analyze. The Romantics looked at this broken world and decided their mission was to put it back together, to make life whole again. So if that was the diagnosis, what was their radical cure? It wasn't to get rid of reason or science. No, it was something way more creative and ambitious. They wanted to make the entire world poetic. And this right here, this is the absolute key to understanding everything, the primacy of the aesthetic. This is their aha moment. The Romantics believed that aesthetics, the principles of beauty, of art, of harmony, that stuff shouldn't just be stuck in a museum or in a book. They argued it should be the basic model for everything, for how we think, how we run our countries, even how we do science. I mean, listen to how the German philosopher Friedrich Schlegel put it. This quote just perfectly captures the insane scale of their ambition. They wanted to completely blur the lines to see science with the soul of an artist and to see art as a force of nature. And this wasn't just some fringe idea in Germany, nope. Over in Britain, the poet John Keats basically said the same thing in his famous Ode on a Grecian Urn. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. For the Romantics, the most beautiful answer was also the truest one. Now, let's be super clear on one thing. They weren't saying everyone should quit their jobs and just write poetry all day, not at all. The goal was to make our lives, our science, our politics, poetic. Meaning they should be structured like a great work of art, where all the different parts work together in this beautiful, meaningful harmony. Okay, so a massive idea, right? How in the world do you start applying it? Well, you start small. You start with the individual. You start with yourself. The Romantics believed that every single person could and should become a living work of art. And the German Romantics had a perfect word for this process: Bildung. Think of it as this lifelong project of self-cultivation, the journey of shaping yourself into a complete, balanced, and whole person, where you're not just a brain or just your emotions, but a harmonious blend of everything you are. And this comparison really lays it all out. On the one hand, you have what they saw as the fragmented modern person, always torn between what their head says and what their heart feels. But on the other hand, you have the romantic ideal of Bildung, where reason and feeling aren't enemies, they're partners. It's about creating a life where what you know, what you do, and what you enjoy all come together in one beautiful, integrated whole. But fixing yourself was just step one. The Romantics were thinking bigger. They wanted to take that same aesthetic blueprint and apply it to an entire society. Their ideal state wouldn't run like a cold, clunky machine. It would flow like a great poem. This quote from Schlegel is just wow. He compares a poem to a republic. And think about it, it makes so much sense. In a good poem, every single word, every line has its own job to do. It's an essential part of the whole. That was their political vision. A community where every person is like a free citizen, contributing to this organic, harmonious society, not because some law forces them to, but because they're all part of the same beautiful creation. So, we've healed the self, we've healed society. What's left? Only the biggest piece of all, healing our relationship with nature. The Romantics wanted to re-enchant the world, to stop seeing it as a dead machine and start seeing it as a living poem. This is what they were fighting against. This idea that science just slices and dices nature, breaking it down into tiny, meaningless parts, like it's just a corpse on a dissection table, lifeless, cold. But the Romantic view couldn't be more different. For them, nature wasn't a corpse. It was a sacred temple. It was alive, it was full of meaning, and it was speaking a language that we could actually learn to understand if we just stop and listen. So what did it actually mean to see nature as an organism? It meant seeing it as this incredible, self-creating force, a holistic unity, not just a pile of rocks and trees, but one living thing that inspires real wonder and awe. And maybe most importantly, it meant seeing ourselves as a part of it all. Not separate, not better, just different in degree, not in kind. So, where does that leave us? Was this whole grand project just a beautiful, kind of crazy dream from the 19th century? Or is it something that's actually still going on? Let's just quickly recap their huge ambition, right? It was basically a 3-step plan to heal the modern world. First, heal yourself by bringing reason and feeling together. Second, heal society by making it work like a piece of art. And third, heal our entire worldview by seeing nature as the living, breathing thing it is. You know, the literary critic Northrop Frye had this great take. He argued that the Romantic project was so big, so profound, that it was actually a revolution that's still unfolding all around us. He said it hasn't completed itself yet. And when you think about modern environmental movements or our obsession with wellness and finding ourselves, you kind of see what he means. And that brings us right back home, to today. I mean, we live in an age of big data, of deep political divisions. A lot of us feel more disconnected from each other and from the natural world than ever. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. Is it possible that this grand, ambitious, unifying vision of the Romantics is exactly what we need right now?